before we get into the right-wingers. Quote by Vladimir Lenin, during the lifetime of great revolutionaries, the oppressing classes constantly hounded them, received their theories with the most savage malice, the most furious hatred, and the most unscrupulous campaign of lies and slander. After their death, fucking Goodreads, what the fuck? After their death, attempts are made to convert them into harmless icons, to canonize them, so to say, and to hollow their names to a certain extent for the consolation of the oppressed classes, and with the object of duping the latter, while at the same time robbing the revolutionary theory of its substance, blunting its revolutionary edge, and vulgarizing it. I thought that was an excellent quote to read today, especially after seeing the monument to Martin Luther King Jr. at the Capitol. And before we hear what Dave Rubin has to say about Martin Luther King Jr. So this is MLK quotes you won't hear.
Hey, good morning from the free state of Florida, everybody.
This motherfucker isn't even in the studio. He's just out poolside in fucking Florida. Oh my God. Or I'm sorry. Seaside in fucking Florida. These lazy motherfuckers. Just like Matt Walsh not pausing to do another cut on the video after he flubbed everything up. They're just fucking lazy. God damn, I put more work into this show than Dave Rubin puts into doing his show. Guaranteed.
Buddy, I wanted to give a quick update, and then I wanted to talk about Martin Luther King Jr. for just a moment. Our plan was to be back in studio today. There was
COVID?
A slight delay with the house. We are officially in tomorrow, and we'll have internet Wednesday morning. So what we're going to do...
Oh my God, he's just jagging himself off.
Tuesday, we will do a test show. We're going to try to rig together some crazy internet just to do a test show, and we're going to set up the studio. And then Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern.
I should have played Steve Bannon first. Steve Bannon's the more serious person.
Thank you guys for your patience. It's been a crazy time over here, but all
this is just sheer grifting.
Day, though, I really want to talk about Martin Luther King Jr. for just a moment. You know, everyone sort of uses him for their own political purposes on a day like today. It's one of the sort of most miserable days that you can be online in a certain respect, because it's like, is that
a divorced dad begging his kid to go on a fishing trip? He's Goofy from the Goofy movie.
So
don't go to the concert.
That I thought
go on the trip with your dad.
In a broad sense. So first I want to throw to this clip. It's about 50 seconds.
He's definitely Goofy.
If I lived in China or even Russia or any totalitarian country.
Oh, there we go. It's going to be, and I've seen that a lot today. MLK's comments about communism. Especially totalitarian, because they love to conflate the two things. They love to, like, I saw socialist dictator today, and I'm like, you're conflating the two things. One is an economic system, one is a political system. They don't ever play you any of MLK's quotes about capitalism or how he's more socialistic in his thinking.
Maybe I could understand some of these illegal injunctions. Maybe I could understand the denial of certain basic First Amendment privileges because they haven't committed themselves to that over there. But somewhere I read of the freedom of assembly. Somewhere I read of the freedom of speech. Somewhere I read of the freedom of press. Somewhere I read that the greatness of America is the right to protest far right.
Does Dave Rubin agree with that?
Beautiful. I don't even have to add much comment.
By the way, I will point out, you can look up the headlines about Martin Luther King Jr. from the times when he was alive. The same things they said about BLM was the same thing they were saying about MLK back then. Exact same things. Exact same things.
Commentary to that. It's like, even back then, we had the tools, we had the documents to free ourselves. And that's what we've done consistently in America, expanded more freedom to more people and allowed for freedom of speech and freedom of assembly so that more and more people could share in the American dream that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was always talking about, so that his children wouldn't be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. And that's not how it is in totalitarian regimes. And it's like, does it feel like maybe we're giving that stuff away right now? Are we possibly giving it away? How does our freedom of assembly feel right now? How does our freedom of speech feel right now? That's for you to decide. So on this day, I would say, maybe we've got all the tools we need. Maybe we've got the documents we need. Maybe we live in the country we're supposed to live in, but it's up to us to strengthen those things. It's up to us to live up to those ideals.
Just platitudes.
It's up to us to fight for the things.
Appeals to symbolism. That's all they have.
That Martin Luther King wanted more than anything else.
Let's talk about what Martin Luther King wanted more than anything else. There's a letter to Coretta Scott King. Let's skip over the I love you and all that bullshit. I imagine you already know that I am much more socialistic in my economic theory than capitalistic. Yet I'm not so opposed to capitalism that I have failed to see its relative merits. It started out with a noble and high motive to block the trade monopolies of nobles, but like most human systems, it fell victim to the very thing it was revolting against. So today, capitalism has outlived its usefulness. It has brought about a system that takes necessities from the masses to give luxuries to the classes. Social systems don't die overnight. He's talking about this Bellamy feller. I don't think he gave capitalism long enough to die. It is probably true that capitalism is on its deathbed, but social systems have a way of developing a long and powerful deathbed breathing capacity. Remember, it took feudalism more than 500 years to pass out from its deathbed. Capitalism will be in America quite a few more years, my dear. Yet, with his basic thesis, I would concur. Our economic system is going through a radical change, and certainly this change is needed. I would certainly welcome the day to come when there will be a nationalization of industry. Let us continue to hope, work, and pray that in the future we will live to see a warless world, a better distribution of wealth, and a brotherhood that transcends race or color. This is the gospel that I will preach to the world. At this point, I must thank you a million times for introducing me to such a stimulating book. You are a sweet and thoughtful indeed. That's a quote from MLK you never fucking hear, Dave Rubin. I honestly should have played Steve Bannon first. He's far more serious. So he says there is no voting rights crisis in America. He's brought on, she's a doctor. She's a professor.
Because you're
a nut job.
You've dedicated your life to learning and to education. What are the universities? Do we have a problem at the major universities, particularly the Ivy or Ivy equivalents like Vanderbilt? Do we have a problem that they're not woke enough, ma'am?
We don't have a problem that they're not woke enough. We do have a problem that the leftist leaders in
She's a retired professor of political science and law at Vanderbilt University, a frequent television analyst, author and editor of several books. She's a hardcore evangelical.
In our country, use young people, and instead of educating them, the administrators use the children. They're not children, they're young adults, but they are manipulated to push a leftist agenda. And so I have no doubt that if the professors decide...
This is my problem with the right wing. They always want to go off on nonsense and make assertions. Never back up what they say. What evidence do you have for your assertion, ma'am? You're a political scientist. You know what a logical fallacy is. Or you just don't fucking care and you're making that bank.
that they want to push this fake voting rights pursuit through the students. They will use the students because that's what they've done all along. The CRT, all of that has come because you had leftist professors that feed ideas to the student activists. They give those activists a list.
I'm not that far removed from college, less than 10 years. Every single right-wing professor I had was very open. The first thing they'd fucking say to you is, I'm Dr. So-and-so, I'm a Christian, I'm a patriot, blah, blah. I mean, it's not like there's that many of them. Every single professor that I would assume was to the left went to great pains to make sure that they came off as impartial. One of the wildest things was the ancient history professor that I had who specialized in fucking Jesus. I didn't know this. He was a Methodist minister. Like, would go and have church on the weekends. The Bible thumpers protested his class every fucking year. There would be like crazy professors come in, act like they were students, and then interrupt the class on the first day every fucking year. And I don't know why. He didn't do anything other than teach facts. So I don't know what they're talking about with this leftist indoctrination bullshit, but they can get away with it. This is a grift they can run, and nobody on the right is ever going to call them out. Their followers are so goddamn stupid and lack critical thinking skills. This woman understands what facts are. You're not a fucking political science and law professor at Vanderbilt University, and you don't know what a fucking fallacy is. Now, smart people can convince themselves of a lot of shit. Cognitive dissonance is a hell of a fucking drug. And I'm sure when you're raking in the money, it's easy to get caught up in the cog diss. Citation needed. I understand. She was a fucking political science and law professor at Vanderbilt University. Vanderbilt is an incredibly good university. She has to know what a fucking fallacy is. I'm just saying.
Of demands, and then the students act out, the administrators cave, and it's all a game.
Okay, so a lot of that's quite provocative. What do you mean fake voting rights? All I hear on MSNBC and CNN all the time is that this is the number one. The Biden
shit. This is a better follow-up question than I've heard on any of the main, like the CNN or MSNBC
of the state election process. What say you, ma'am?
Steve Bannon's a smart man.
I'm old enough to have lived through the civil rights movement, to have seen the passage of the 1964 Voting Rights Act, the 1964 Civil Rights Act, 1965 Voting Rights Act. There are no prohibitions to voting in America for people who are legally qualified. And the Democrats are using voting rights as a way to expand the election.
You are wrong, man. First of all, there are 9 court cases in Alabama alone in 2018 regarding access to the ballot. And there are many cases across all the states. What it is we do not make it easy to vote in this country. It is not a holiday. Your employer is only like required to give you an hour off or some shit. Are they even required? So if Republicans can make it to where there's longer lines, they discourage people from voting, and that's what they've been doing with surgical precision. I live in a bougie-ass area. It took me like 2 minutes to fucking vote. That's not the way it is on the other side of town, and that's by design. So you getting up here and saying anyone who's legally able to can vote leaves off a lot of fucking information, ma'am. If you're working 2 or 3 jobs, you're barely fucking getting by. The chances you're paying attention to politics in the first place is somewhat low. But then that you're able to fucking get the time off from work, have the means to go to the polling place. That's why we have such low turnout in this country, and it benefits one specific party. And it benefits the ruling class, the oppressive class. So I'm sorry, you may have convinced yourself that you're correct because that money from the right wing is so sweet, but you are wrong, ma'am. And you having the qualifications that you have makes me believe that you might be a little sociopathic. I know Steve Bannon is fucking evil. He is a very smart man. He knows what he's doing, and he's fucking us over on purpose. Now, you might have the cog dis, you might have some cynicism, whatever the fuck that you tell yourself.